The Twilight Zone was one of the most popular shows during the 1960s. It started off in 1959 and it just took off in the distance. Today we are going to talk about probably the most popular episode, The Eye of the Beholder, Season 2, Episode 6.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight.
Boy, I love nostalgia. So this story is interesting. The Twilight Zone was so big during its time of just the weird scientific horror elements of just life and how far you can go in these like weird worlds. And that's why we always enter the Twilight Zone. And I think that's one of the best parts of the Twilight Zone. With this episode, I really wanted to dive into and just talk about it for, 15, 20 minutes. Just because of how many layers there is into this episode that I actually was blown away. This starts off pretty easy. You start off with Rod Serling explaining
Suspended in time and space for a moment, your introduction to Miss Janet Tyler.
Well, the typical introduction of the Twilight Zone. And what happens is when you enter, you don't know what's going on. You have a nurse that you do not see her face. Throughout this whole thing, you don't see anyone's face. It's always shadowed, or if you do, it's just a little bit of light on her eye. And with that, opens up immediately with the nurse walking into a woman wearing a bandage. It kind of reminds me, gives me a vibe, like a Frankenstein vibe, where she is hideous. And when the nurse comes in there, she talks to the bandaged woman. And the bandaged woman, instead of asking oh, how's my recovery going? Because that's what you kind of think when you're watching this, is oh, she's recovering from something. But no, she's asking, how was the day? Was it sunny? Was it warm? Was it beautiful out? How was the clouds? Did the clouds were full and lustrous? What was it like out there? What did it smell like out there? And you as the audience have no idea what she's talking about. I also had no idea what she was talking about. When she was talking about this, I was like, what in God's name are you spieling about? And through all this, the nurse kind of just doesn't really speak too much about it. She's like, oh, it was just another day. But what do you mean another day? This woman clearly has no idea what another day means. When she asks, how was the weather? How nice was it? Was it warm, cool, hot, whatever? The nurse ignores her and takes her temperature. And then the woman asks, how long can I take these bandages off? How much longer before these bandages can come off? And guess what? The nurse says, I don't know. Could be a day, could be a week, could be 2 weeks. I don't know. I have to talk to the doctor. The nurse responds to, until they fix your face. So then you clearly through this whole thing, building up to this, I actually thought, oh, so she has really bad scarring or something so horrendous that they have to fix it or try to, and she can't get it fixed. The depth of the scene is actually a lot deeper than I actually was anticipating on. Usually cold opens or just opening scenes to an episode of a show or a movie, especially shows, doesn't really impact you too much, especially if it's a season. Episode 1 should be the most impactful opening scene usually. That's why I like the Twilight Zone, because they're not all coordinated. They're all their own single little episodes. And that's why I think it's so beautiful about this. The woman again asks the nurse, when can I take these off? And the nurse looks at her and says, maybe someday. I think the most important part about this whole thing is the impact of not seeing anyone's face. Like I said earlier, you do see outlines of people's faces. You can see a little bit of a shadowy face in this, but you don't see anyone. Or if they're on screen, you only see their hands, or you only see the back of their heads. You never actually fully see their face. And these nurses are out in the office, in the lobby, talking about how hideous this woman's face is. And that's where we see the first face of this episode. The first face is of Rod Serling. And he tells us about this character, this nightmare of a darkness, this woman named Janet Tyler, who is living a nightmare of darkness. And she is entering, just like how we are, into the Twilight Zone. And soon we will see what is behind the bandage. I do love this opening so much because it's just interesting that we only see Rod Serling's face and no one else's. And I think that's just so deep on so many levels that I think it's just something that makes this pop. The reality of us not seeing anyone's face, and at the end, when we eventually see the reveal of Janet, it's so deep, and it's just such a impactful thing. I love this episode so much. This is when we get into the scene now with the doctor. The doctor does enter, but again, we don't see his face, we only see his hands, and if we do see his face, it's usually just shadowed, so we don't really see it too much. And again, I do like this a lot, and just makes it really more impactful of just the eye of the beholder, how deep and how much you just don't see anyone's faces, you only see their hands or their back. And this is where the doctor and Janet talk. So then this is where Janet and the doctor talk, and Janet again begs, when can I take these bandages off? And the doctor says a day, a week, 2 weeks. He doesn't really know. And you as the audience is sitting there like, bro, just what is the issue? What is hiding behind that bandages that is making her so horrendous? And this is where Janet does her monologue. How her whole life has been nothing but total darkness. And she doesn't know how to escape the cave of darkness. She just wants to touch the night air. Something. She just wants to feel something on her face. And you, as the audience, is just like, dude, just let her go outside or something. And she begs to leave. And if she said, if I leave, you take the bandages off my face, I won't even look at a mirror. I won't do anything like that. And the doctor's like, you can't. You're too hideous. You cannot do that. Someone will look at you. And the elements of just how the alliance with someone, how the way that someone looks is so prejudice, and she mentions that in the story that it is. And I think it's just so, it's crazy how groundbreaking a lot of these episodes are. And this is from, like I said, 1960, so it's like so groundbreaking how far ahead they are and just the way people look. It's crazy. The doctor then tells her this has been her 11th attempt to fix her face. In their world that apparently you have like 11 tries and you can't fix it, you go to this place where the rest of your kind goes, where you can't get fixed. They all go there. And this is where she starts talking about like the segregation and just the way that she looks is and they're all trying to prevent her, and they can't all live in a society together from the way that she looks. And like I said, it's just so impactful and deeper than you would think. Surface level, you think about this episode and you don't really think about it, but I watched this like 2 or 3 times to really let it just sink into me. And holy crap, just the impact of this episode, of the way that Janet would just monologue about how stripped she is from everything because of the way she looks hits you harder and harder every time you see it. This is where Janet stands up and like rushes to the window. Granted, she can't see because the bandages are literally covering her whole face. She looks like a mummy, but she can't see either. So she runs to the window and pushes the window open. Now, of course, she doesn't like get up and immediately run to the window. She hits the wall and she can feel the window. She opens it and then she looks at the doctor and like grabs him. She's like, please just let me feel the night air on my face. That's all she wants. Something so simple, but yet it can't happen. This is where we get to the part where we finally are going to accept that the doctor will remove the bandage. And he tells her that if you do this, then we will, and it's not successful, then we will take you to the other place. And this is where you can hear her deep down just saying, yeah, okay. She also wanted to do a different alternative. Something with just, let's just say, ending her life. The doctor said no, that's not going to happen. She'll go to the place where the rest of them are at. And me as the watcher is like, what other place? Because the whole time, you're thinking, what's going on? And this is where it happens. He makes her promise. You cannot be hysterical. You can't be any emotional or anything. And they start slowly cutting the bandage off. And there's a lot of cool scenes with it where you can just see his hand going like this. And the camera shot where the bandages are covering it. So you just see like barely light and constantly going like this. And this is where the treatment is not successful. They reveal the bandage and Janet is ugly. But not in our eyes. Me, when I see her, she's gorgeous, stunning, flawless, beautiful blonde hair, soft, silky skin. And that's what she is, gorgeous. But everyone else are pig face. It's such a deep message of just like how everyone looks so ugly besides her, but she is the hideous one. And this is where things get even more crazy, because this is where Janet actually loses her mind and escapes her room, and that's all she sees are just pig face people. And then when she's about to leave, that's when she runs to a beautiful man, that looks just like her. The doctor tells her, he's like, this is who you're going with into this other land. And the guy, this handsome man, tells her, Janet, beauty is in eyes of the beholder. And then they walk away. So this whole story, I really do enjoy this a lot more. I remember as a kid, I used to watch a lot of the Twilight Zone growing up. My dad was really into it and a lot of Star Trek. I watched a lot of these older shows just growing up. The freakiest one of the Twilight Zone is the one where the world is like all mannequins and are just slowly coming closer to this man. I thought about doing that one, but I decided let's do the highest rating one. And this is just so deep on so many levels. I like how they're talking about how beauty is not truly just surface level. It's deeper than that. The layers of just how beauty standards as a whole is so obnoxious. Even during this time, this era of the 60s, beauty was held so much higher. And I would argue even now, like 2025, it's held to a higher level. Now, is there some elements where beauty does kind of get away with a lot of things? Yeah, because if you're beautiful, I feel like when you're beautiful, you get higher up on privileges. And that's kind of what one of the focuses of this is they wanted a standard of every single person to look and act the same. But how can you do that when there's people that look different? Because they are hideous compared to others. But beauty, remember, is always in the eye of the beholder.
What kind of world where ugliness is the norm and beauty the deviation from that norm? You want an answer? The answer is it doesn't make any difference. Because the old saying happens to be true. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.